I finally watched Invincible Season 1, but does it live up to the hype? Welcome to Cinema, where we focus on a film. I'm Josh, this is Simply Cinema, and with Season 2, Part 2 coming out, I decided it's just about time I finally get into the Invincible series after hearing so much anticipation. But before I get into my thoughts, make sure to comment down below what you think of this season with the spoiler-free discussion as we're going to go into it. Do you like it? Are you on the side where you think it's a bit overrated for its own means? And make sure to like this video if you enjoy it, subscribe if you haven't already, help me build this film culture community as we do daily uploads talking all about movies and TV all together. But going right into it with the positive, I just really enjoy the aspects going into this superhero show that's unconventional to comic book movies I've seen in just general watching many of the different movies. I'm not always a big TV show person, and that's what pushed me back from seeing it to begin with, just because I always stray toward the movies and away from the shows just every once in a while. Nothing personal against what shows do, but for this show, it hooks you in right off the bat, just creating these different characters, these different superheroes, and even in episode 1, there's a familiarity to certain characters they introduce and divide the attention into all of these different tropes that you're familiar with, ideas, and a setup that you're quite interested in for the ideas they're going to. And they explore some nice ideas just with the superhero world in general. They don't get super realistic with the realm of possibility of what would happen if these characters were in real life on Earth, their actions and everything. There's still a bit of fiction to the tale, of course, not just with their powers, but with the decisions they do, how they really are treated within the world itself. But there's still a sense of realism to the building up of these characters, the establishment, and yet even in the end of the episode 1, once you're really getting settled into feeling that it's going to be something we've seen before, it really turns things around. And without spoiling anything throughout any of this video, it just subverts my expectation right off the bat. I already enjoyed what we're getting, but with that sense of familiarity right out of the gate, it starts to get better and better by building up this tension, taking away what we're recognizing from the comic book genre in general. And so it becomes fresh and builds and establishes on these characters from the main lead to any of the side, and just what they're doing with Invincible and his father, how they're coming from this superhero world. There's always a sense of mystery that establishes the story from the get-go once you really start getting it. And the mystery is something that never really gets questioned into the end, and that's what leaves you wanting to learn more and more. And yet the show sets up all of these different villains along the way, creating not an episodic tale to where you can understand the show by each episode, but you have to watch all the way through to get the whole picture of the story. And yet it is cohesive in its inherent merits that creates a great and superficial superhero story with all of these different powers that are somewhat familiar. You can't get way too outside of the realm of what's created already, yet it still feels fresh for its own merits, for how it's dividing the characters into father and son and the secret identities, how they're tackling that, and then what they're doing with Invincible as Mark trying to get a girlfriend along the way, and what you're doing with that based on the realm of predictability. It's not always there, because I assumed based on a certain action that's done, it would lead to one outcome, but it still manages to take things a bit farther, being less predictable, just being in the general realm of this genre. And it becomes great with its animation and great with its cast. Steve Yeun as Invincible, and then we got Mark Hamill in there. and J.K. Simmons as Omni-Man, just having some great cast members, and it's just really bloody and gory for its own means. Of course, it's an animation, yet it still delivers on being bold. Right outside the gate of episode 1, you're going into subverting the expectation of what I predicted this show to be like. Just the way they're establishing these characters, building up the scale of what the weight of the world is weighing in on these superheroes, how there's secret government organizations that are tackling and in charge of these superheroes. That becomes more unique, and it's something that I can really dig into and sink into the world that they're establishing on screen. It's not superficial by its own means of being in animation and not live action, but it still is creating a world that I am loving because of the scale, because of how much it sets up from its villains. Even the side villains get enough to them that you can really dig into what they're doing, the backstory to why they are doing what they're doing with their wishes and their evil intent, and what you're ultimately getting out of Omni-Man as the strongest and most powerful superhero essentially on the earth, and the mystery behind him, the mystery behind the family, and the just sentimental emotions that you get throughout the show. It just establishes something really great that you grab into from the world building and the scale of the battles, and just the violence is something that's really something that hooked me from the start and hooks me time and time again. You get the different team building elements and so much more that makes me just really, really adore what this show is going after just within season 1 alone. But going into some of the mixed elements, some things that may turn off some viewers is, of course, the violence, the gore. And so if you're not into gore, even in animations, just how violent it gets, it can get really violent. And it sort of sets up by the title card itself that upon each episode, it gets bloodier and bloodier by the way they set up. But even at the end of episode 1, it's violent enough that it's obviously not even a show to start getting into, because that's what hooks you into trying to get into the rest of the show. So if you're not into the gore, even on screen, or even cussing throughout, it's pretty much an adult show. So if you weren't familiar with that, or were thinking of getting into the show with this new season coming out, it may not be for you if that's not personally your taste, or you need to stray away from that. And also another mixed element that was on my side of things, there is this one character that is more annoying just by the tropes and how he's set up to be a younger kid on the superhero team, how he established his character, who he's connected with. He has a little bit of a whiny attitude that can throw off some of the plot. It works well for the writing, how well they're establishing his age and writing his character into blending what the reality might be for him being a superhero in real life. And so he still has the establishment put in place in the Guardians of the Globe, but unfortunately, there's still a turnoff by some of that attitude that does throw some situations out of proportion when just wanting to view it naturally, enjoy each and every character. He's one of my least favorite characters, but that's just going to be my personal preference for what I got out of this show. And so that's just all I have to say about Invincible Season 1, and I have to rate it simply 9 out of 10. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to comment down below if you want to see me talk about this show more, because I enjoyed it that much more. It may be a couple weeks before I get to see through Season 2 because of all the movies and other stuff I have covered here on this content, but make sure to comment down below any suggestions if you would like to see me talk about this show more in depth with the characters or any side plots or individual episodes. Make sure to leave that all down in comments below. Like this video, subscribe if you haven't already if you are new to this channel, so we can build this film culture community. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.